Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Small business owners. Spectrum Business knows you do it all. Make sales, track inventory, and keep your customers happy. Keep it all going with Spectrum One for Business. For just $49.99 a month, get fast, reliable internet, advanced Wi-Fi with Security Shield, and a free mobile line for 1 year. Visit spectrum.com/business to get internet, advanced Wi-Fi, and a free mobile line for a year for $49.99 a month. Visit spectrum.com/business today. Restrictions apply. Services not available in all areas.
This episode is brought to you by Rakuten. If you're shopping while working, eating, or even listening to this podcast, then you know and love the thrill of the hunt. But are you getting the thrill of the best deals? Rakuten shoppers do. They get the brands they love with the most savings and cash back. And you can get it too. Start getting cash back at your favorite stores like Samsung, Expedia, and Sephora. And even stack sales on top of cash back. It's easy to use, and you get your cash back through PayPal or check. The idea is simple. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cash back. Download the free Rakuten app and never miss a deal. Or go to Rakuten.com to start getting the most bang for your buck. That's RAKUTEN.
I would be so pissed if like the person next to me during Defying Gravity like pulled out a camera and like for the most important 90 seconds of my life, like I have to worry that an usher is going to stop and like obstruct my view. Like that's terrifying.
I love that you compared Defying Gravity to the most important 90 seconds of your life.
I mean, it is while it's happening, like nothing else matters.
My name's Quincy.
My name's Kevin.
And this is Sentimental Men.
But keep your thumb away from that skip button.
We're here to talk.
And maybe scream.
About our favorite women in musical theater.
I would say new year, new us, but we are back on our several time zone bullshit here in 2021.
Like already off to a chaotic start.
Truly off to just chaos.
You just stood in line and got COVID tested. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, a little hungover, a little sleep deprived, and here we are.
You know, it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. Real quick, how are you? Like, how is your holidays? How is your new year so far?
Yeah, it was good. I feel like we definitely have been talking over this break, but not as frequently, I think, as we normally do.
I know. It was kind of nice. Not to take a break from you, but like to take just like a little breather from the pod was nice.
Yeah, to kind of unplug from everything, I think was much needed.
Much needed.
But I'm back, feeling refreshed and better than ever, ready to go 2021.
Yes, having fun in 21.
Today, on this beautiful morning, it's morning for both of us right now, so
that
works. We have your friend and mine, Jason Wilks, coming on the podcast. Jason is a Wicked stan. I don't want to say how many times he's seen Wicked because I feel like that should be his thunder to have.
Yeah.
But he is also an age-old internet friend of mine. We came together when I was probably 12 or 13, really, really young. I stumbled into the deep, dark world of Wicked/Broadway bootlegging. And when I say, like, the world, like, I feel like there are tiers of Broadway bootlegging, and there's people who get their bootlegs on YouTube and through social media, and then there's people who are getting it straight from the source and on the boards and trading links and all of that kind of stuff. And I somehow met Jason through that, and we became, quote-unquote, trading partners, which I don't want to get too much into because I feel like we'll talk about it. But yeah, so we were trading partners, and then we just kind of kept in touch as the years have gone on. We've both moved away from trading Broadway bootlegs, but it definitely was a very involved time in our life, and I think it's going to be fun.
I'm sure.
Because, like, how versed are you in the, like, deep world of bootlegging?
I know it's there. Like, I know that it exists. I like know enough to have the conversation that we're about to have, but I am definitely not as far into it as you are. But I think that's fun because I
think that's exciting.
I think it's exciting. And it's fun because I feel like James was kind of an extension of my point of view of this fandom, and I feel like Jason is very much a bonus of like your point of view on this fandom.
Yeah. I've been talking to actually some friends while I've been home for the holidays about this podcast, and I was like, it's really interesting because I think Kevin and I are so alike, but we both bring a very different I think we think about this show in a different way, which has benefited the podcast, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. It'd be boring if it was just like two of me or two of you sitting here agreeing with each other for an hour at a time.
Jason's actually going to do our Stuck on SJB, so we don't have to do that.
Love that, because I don't have one.
Okay, thank you so much for coming, Jason. We're so excited to do this.
I know. It's been a long time coming.
We normally in our intro, we do Stuck on SJB, but I asked you if you wanted to do that today because you are also a SJB stan.
Sure.
Do you have something ready?
Yes. It's something we've all seen before. It's the Stephanie J. Block Defying Gravity Pro Shot video.
The classic.
The classic. They still play it at the Gershwin, at least as of the last time I saw it. But that was like the thing that got me reintroduced to Wicked. So it was like very monumental for me. And also like, I'm trying to think, I must have been like 11 when I first saw it. So that was like the thing that like taught me what a riff was, or like an alternate melody, shall we call it?
What alternate melody is she doing in that?
Oh, like Look to the Western Sky, that whole
Yeah.
Like now I don't even think of that as like like so many people do it. But that was like my first lesson in musical theater. Like it taught me like that is a video that will forever stay in my mind. And when it comes on, I never skip through it. Like if it's just on YouTube, I will always watch it.
Yeah.
That was also the first video I saw of like the flying portion of Defying Gravity.
I remember right when I first moved to the city after college, I was like near Port Authority and it was like up on one of the big screens. And I remember like looking up and being like, oh, Stephanie J. Block is right there. Everything's going to be okay. It's a good day.
That makes me wonder. So was there like an OBC ad campaign?
I don't think so. I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure there was, but not with any kind of like
there's no Adina commercial.
No. I'm sure that the original commercial. Oh no, the original commercial was like close-ups of the artwork, right? What am I making that up? It was like zoomed in on like,
I feel like you would be the one to remember it.
You're probably right.
It was before I
don't know if anyone older than me is listening. Let me know if I'm right.
I wonder if they're going to switch it out to Jackie Burns at some point.
I think they have.
Oh, have they?
Like in the lobby.
Oh, not in the lobby, but like promotionally, it's all Jackie.
That's cute.
I kind of hope they don't. I think it's just such like a nice little like intermission treat. You know, you just saw Defying Gravity and then you get it again, like with Stephanie J. Block.
Yes.
They make sure that everyone has heard Stephanie's Defying Gravity.
It's honestly a move we would make.
That's awesome. Thank you for that Stuck on SJB, Jason. That was great.
Yeah. Oh, it brought back good memories. Thank you, Jason.
All right, so we usually begin every interview, you know the drill, by asking when Wicked first came into your life. When did you discover it?
Okay, so there's like a twofold answer to this. I saw Wicked the first time, I think I was 7 or just turned 8.
Aw, that's cute.
Yeah, it was my first big show, and it was the first national tour in Philadelphia, because that was before I lived in New York. To be real with you, it wasn't like I remember very specific moments.
But you were young.
Yeah, it was like before I was into theater, but I remember my mom still says like she was impressed that it was like way past my bedtime and I was like very focused. So like I had that going. But then like a few years later when I was like getting into theater myself, I like came across the Stephanie J. Block Defying Gravity on YouTube. And I just remember being like, whoa, like I've never heard singing like this before. So like I got into this like well of bootlegs and like all these different Defying Gravity renditions, but I only would listen to Defying Gravity because I was like, I don't want to hear anything else until I see the show again. So then I think, yeah, in 7th grade, I saw it again because I was like begging my parents to take me, and that's when the monster was born.
That's when the monster was born. Who was it in 7th grade? Well, who was it on tour and who was it in 7th grade?
On tour, it was Julia Murney.
Oh, wow. Love that.
Right? I like wish I could remember it better. I feel like so like mad that
I know.
The fact that you got to see Julia Murney, but you were so young.
yeah. And then when I saw it again in middle school, it was Mandy Gonzalez and Katie Rose Clark.
Ooh, that's a good
So
cast.
that was like the reintroduction. And then I ended up moving to New York City right before high school. And my high school was 2 blocks away from the Gershwin Theater. So like that's how I, saw it so many times.
Okay, yeah. So how many times have you seen Wicked, Jason?
We're up to 57.
Wow.
I know. It's there's no excuse for it. Like there's no way I can talk about it and make it sound less crazy. All I can say is the majority of those times were during those 4 years of high school when it was so accessible to me.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy. 57?
It's a lot.
Because it's like, I feel like that's when we entered each other's lives, and I feel like you were seeing Wicked like every single day. And I was just like, this kid.
Yeah. So I guess this is like where we're getting into, but I guess when I was like 13, 14, this whole bootleg empire began. And
Mhm.
I think you reached out to me first.
Yeah, okay, so Kevin knows about the bootleg world, but he's not like well versed in like the minutia of it all. Because I do think it's way more layered than people realize.
Yeah.
For sure.
So before we get to like how I reached out to you, let's start with explaining just baseline how it all worked. At least from my understanding, I fell into it, I think because on YouTube I would keep seeing like visit my website to trade or something. And I was like, wait, what? What does this mean? And then I like started looking at websites, and I honestly think that's how I found you, Jason, because I think you were like YouTubing bootlegs back in the day.
Yeah.
And then so I found your website, and I think I found out about like trading starter packs, as they were called, and it's like you could it's crazy. You could like reach out to traders and be like, "Hi, I'm new. Like, do you want to like start me off with some bootlegs so I can have it?" And then you take those and you have to like hustle and trade it for other things, and that's how you build your collection.
Correct. And side note, I think it's crazy that I had like a trading website because I don't know how to make a website anymore. Like if you were to tell me to build a website, like I'd have no idea.
Yeah, it was Weebly.
Yeah. I remember I had this like being 13, this was like the riskiest thing I ever did. Like I had like this moral compass back then of like, oh my God, this is illegal. It's bad. And then I fell into it. It sucked me in.
So then you have your website, and on everyone's homepage of the website would be this like legal disclaimer being like, I don't own any of this. If you're a police, something or other. Did nothing.
If anyone's listening to this, it means nothing. Like don't think that'll save you. It will not. So I started this YouTube channel. Infamously would get shut down by copyright like every month. So it started at like Jason 28, and then we'd go down to like Jason 27, Jason 26, Jason 29. And I think like Jason 25 was like the longest running one. It lasted like 5 years. And then my freshman year of college, it got terminated. And I was like, this is a sign. I was like, I'm grown now. I was like, I think it's time to leave this chapter behind.
Yeah. So then you and I were like in contact that way. And then somehow it escalated to like us being trading partners. Correct. Which explain what like that meant for us.
I feel like this is like the most Gen Z thing to ever happen. Like this like online like business partnership. So essentially you were better at this. Like you created like a Google Doc. And so what we would do is we would individually trade, we would conduct our business, and whatever bootlegs we got, we would share in the stock. So basically anything I had, Quincy also had.
And vice versa.
That's cute.
Yes.
And it was like, because the way you traded was you sent like these like mega download links or whatever. So you could just like compile a Google Doc of all these download links for different bootlegs. And it was like categorized by like year and who was in the boot and stuff. And honestly, like pretty high level stuff for a bunch of like preteens to be doing together.
Yeah.
Yes. And I always still like wonder about like, do people know we were like 12? Like I don't like.
Well, it's funny too because I feel like that's like something that's just like a difference that like the couple of years between us make, because like when I was 10, 11, 12 and like all of the internet was very new, like we all had the fear of God put in us about the internet. Like at school, like we would have school assemblies where police officers would come in and be like, only use the internet for homework. there was like a very concentrated effort to make us afraid of the internet. And so I think I like probably just missed the cutoff where I was like, yeah, I'll torrent some shit to like hear Stephanie J. Block sing Defying Gravity. So it's like, I mean, it's crazy for me. Like,
Well, there was like a moment, I remember it was so funny. I asked Quincy one day, and this was like months after we already like were into trading. I was like, by the way, how old are you? I was so scared. I was like, what if like this whole time he's like 70?
I had been thinking that you were like this older male, and it was like so taboo that I was like having this relationship with this like old guy who like, and then we like broke the ice that we were actually the same exact age.
Oh my
Like we're the same age. It's okay. Like thank God.
So like we had been trading bootlegs. I had seen Wicked through bootlegs a bajillion times before it ever, because I was just like a 13-year-old kid in Hawaii. Wicked wasn't coming to Hawaii for the longest time. And then I remember it was announced that it was coming, and like Jason, you were literally the first person I emailed. And it was like, oh my God, it's coming. And then I would send you an update after every show. I literally, Jason, I went back to find the emails. I thought about reading it on this podcast, but it's honestly like a little too tragic to like.
Can I say one thing though? Like one part of the email that sticks out in my mind to this day.
Oh my God.
I remember you said you were honored to hear Di Racioli optioned up on the second Bring Me Down. You used the word honored. You're like, I was honored to be in this performance.
Oh my God. Which like still tracks. Kevin and I were just talking about our favorite options.
Of course.
And then at some point, I somehow discovered like the Yahoo groups where like the masters were posting about their releases. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it's basically the person who did the bootlegging, the person who recorded it. Because usually how trading would work is usually like the bootleg would be sold for a period of time. Like you could only buy it for however much money, and then eventually it'd be allowed to be like traded off.
right.
I never really was into that. I always thought it was like odd.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of selling it was always like not right to me.
Yeah. And it was also like these people were probably making bank off of
yeah.
Because they were like, it was like $25 a bootleg.
Mm-hmm. Which like is how much the Wicked Lottery is, and you could do it
Right. You could pay for your ticket if you sell it to 5 people.
Exactly.
It was like a good business model, I guess, for them.
I guess, but then I think that's also like why my like YouTube channel was like infamous, because I would leak them. Like, they would be like, you must pay for it. I'd be like, nah, you get it for free.
I remember I had seen that like a Mamie Paris tour bootleg had been released, and you had it, and I like emailed you begging for it, and it was like such a big deal that you gave it to me before because they would have like not for trade dates. It was like NFT was the acronym, and that was like the date that you could like trade it after, and it was normally like months you had to hold on to it. And you like gave me the Mamie Paris bootleg beforehand, because I think at that point I thought I was gonna like see her on tour when I came to Hawaii, but she had left by then.
Yeah, I think I don't know like exactly, because I stopped trading before senior year of high school, like around that time. It's like a side hustle. Like it really is. Like you have to be on it like every day, messaging people, answering emails, like negotiating. That was always the funniest part, like this idea of like currency. Like this Mamie Paris bootleg was like had to be worth something else rare. It couldn't be like a standard thing everyone had.
Yeah, exactly. Like depending on who was in the bootleg,
yes,
it affected the like rareness of it.
Right. Yeah. I will say, I think as you're talking about this idea of like the master and like the master like recordings, I don't know if I didn't know that or if I'm just like remembering that I knew that hearing you guys talk about it. But I'm now hearing that I'm like, oh well, that's probably what maybe a generation ago of performers hear the word bootlegging and probably think like someone is selling a recording of my performance, which is like of course you have an issue with that. It feels like there is like a disconnect between like what we call bootlegging and what perhaps people are thinking is bootlegging.
That's true, because I feel like we've talked about this before, Kevin, but it's like to come after the 13-year-old kid who just loves Wicked and is like trying to get more bootlegs so he can watch it in his freaking bedroom, I think carries a different weight than like the adult who's going to the show, recording it, and then selling it to the 13-year-old kids.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
I also think like just like the attitude of bootlegging has changed, because it's a relatively, I don't want to say it's recent, but I think like with the introduction of YouTube and like Instagram and all of that, it is recent. Because like I remember I saw Shoshana Bean talk about how like when she first started in Wicked, she would like personally message people when she saw like a bootleg posted of herself and be like, please take it down. I don't know if it's preventable at this point. I don't know. I think it's interesting how like the attitude of it has changed. But also like obviously Quincy, I'm sure maybe you feel the same way. Like the way I view it now as a grown up versus like 13 years old, not really thinking that these are like actual people with like lives that are we're like trading around their shows, like whatever. Like it's just different. Like I think there's a different awareness.
For sure. Because I think there was something, especially when we were younger, and I'd be interested to hear your take, because like for me, bootlegs was like the only way I was accessing Wicked, in the sense where like it was such an unattainable thing for me, where I was like, oh, that's like in New York, I'm all the way in Hawaii. It felt like so crazy to me, just the idea of like the mainland even. But for you, you're like trading bootlegs of these people, and you're also like seeing these people live.
That's interesting. I feel like for me, the reason why it was mostly about being able to see people who were like before my time, I guess, before I started. So before Mandy Gonzalez era. I think for me, I just like always was fascinated by like the idea that the same show and these same roles could be performed so many different ways. And that's also why I would see it in person so many times, because I think it was just so, like so fascinating to be able to see it done so many different ways. I personally got more into like audios. I think I just like after I saw it a certain amount of times, like I just wanted to hear how people sang it.
Yeah. And the audios were like easier to like maintain, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Doing all the video downloading and stuff.
Yeah, but that's interesting. I never really thought about it. Like, I guess I'm just that obsessed. Like, I don't know. Like, I could see it online. I could see it in person. Didn't matter. Like, I loved all of it.
You've seen it at the Gershwin, going home, turning on a bootleg.
Honestly, I've done that. Isn't that sad? Like,
it's like not sad though. It's incredible. But I think like the bootlegs have given us such like a foundational knowledge of Wicked. Whereas like if we had to rely on only the times we've seen it live, I don't think we would be able to discuss the show in such depth.
I certainly wouldn't be, no.
Oh, absolutely. And I've actually, here's something I've been thinking about that I'm curious about your thoughts on. I guess I'm always like suspicious or curious if someone new comes into the show and does like a vocal choice that has clearly been done like 5 years before. Like sometimes I wonder, is it because like Wicked's been around for so long? Like, does that person think they're creating that choice? Or are they like conscious that it has been done before, maybe in like a different production like 8 years prior? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
I feel like anybody after like Caroline Bowman is lying to me if they tell me they haven't ever watched a bootleg ever. Maybe not like recently, like after you were cast.
They've never come across a bootleg.
Never, ever sunk to the low of watching a green slime tutorial on YouTube.
I
also, we kind of touched on it earlier. Like, do you think the Broadway shutdown has kind of impacted? Because it seems like right now there's a very like pro bootleg attitude.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. The shutdown, like this is all we have right now, so like people are enjoying it more. But what I will say is, at least from my mind, like the thing I do like about it that for me has always been the case is like it's a celebration of like these incredible performers. I like that we're all like able to praise someone who sounds amazing or does something amazing. I think it always had like this negative connotation of like it's meant to be toxic and compare, and like that is the truth for some people, which is not good. But
yeah, because it definitely can be toxic and
horrible. Absolutely.
Well, another thing too that I was thinking about recently is when Rebecca Luker passed away. Everybody was just sharing all these videos, and it was so nice. And I think it was Julia Murney who like tweeted, and she was like, any young people who want to like learn about how to be in the arts and how to, you know, have stage presence or blah blah blah, like watch all of these videos that people are sharing of Rebecca Luker. And I got to thinking, I was like, it's like all of these videos exist not even just to expose the show to people, but to expose the art form of theater. Like I feel like if we took a poll of any artist involved in theater who is like our age and is like, what made you go into this, a big majority of them are going to be like, oh, I was watching a bootleg of X, Y, or Z show in my basement when I was 12, and that's what did it for me. And so I think like big picture, it's like I think there's much more good that's coming out of this than bad.
I think bootlegs are net good for the industry.
Yeah. And I think they're net good for this period of time when like everything is shut down. It's like keeping all of us together in a conversation.
That's very true. I was also going to say, like, even as like a marketing tool for a show like Wicked that like I think Wicked thrives off of the fact that it is bootleg so heavily and that like people have that touch point for it and then can go and want to see it live, you know? It's not like some hush hush thing like before all the Hamilton bootlegs came out. I feel like it's like if you hadn't seen it, then you're kind of just like, okay.
I feel like Hamilton proved the point we had all along about like a recording being accessible to people is not going to prevent people from wanting to see the show. Because like obviously they released this video during shutdown, but they did like a legal, fully recorded production of Hamilton that's like on Disney Plus. Obviously we don't know yet, but I guarantee like their ticket sales are not going to suffer when Broadway comes back because it's available on Disney Plus, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And we were talking about it in a previous ep, how like I wonder if the Diana musical being on Netflix, say that finds some audience on Netflix and like develops, because like we're not necessarily sure how it would have done on Broadway, but like, and then it comes back on Broadway and now has this rabid fan base because of the Netflix show and then does really well on Broadway. I think that'd be a cool case in point.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I hadn't put it in that context, Quincy, of like the two big like streaming musical record or presentations that have come out will be Hamilton and Diana, like which are opposite ends of like the fandom spectrum at this point because Diana couldn't have had a fandom yet. So that's really interesting. I'll be curious to compare those results.
Or even if like Diana is one of the new, because I feel like we're going to see like a lot of shows not come back to Broadway when all of this is over. But like if Diana is one of them that gets to come back, I would attribute it to the Netflix special.
Yeah.
I mean, like the last thing I think about bootlegging, I will say, I think Quincy and I were both like, as much as you can doing what we did, like we're relatively nice. Like I never would post something that I thought made someone like look bad or we would never like, again, we'd be like bitchy to each other about like, oh my God, did you hear this? But like it would never leave the email.
The email. It was never like public, you know?
Exactly.
Like Wicked has thousands of well-intentioned 13-year-olds just marketing for them. You know?
Yes.
It's true. And they have had for 2 decades. The kids who are like now finding the show are like as into it as like we were when we, you know, in 2005, which is crazy that the staying power of that.
Yeah, they just keep getting new crops of fans as the kids grow up.
Yeah.
And I do feel like people are getting nicer as like time goes on. Like I think the fan culture of Wicked was very toxic and like dark. I think probably even like Kevin when you were like getting into it. And then I think like as the years have gone by, it's maybe gotten nicer in general, I think.
I do think that there's like energy from the show coming to the fandom being like, pump the brakes, guys.
Calm it down.
For real.
It's a musical.
It's funny because like the message of the show is like all about acceptance and friendship and love and all of that.
Exactly.
And I feel like in the fandom, it gets crazy.
Jason, we played this game in our pilot episode and also with James Kennedy. And I think because you've seen the show 57 times, you're a great person to play Alpha Bowl with. Do you understand the concept of it? We pull a name and then we decide whether they're a Defying Gravity, Wizard and I, or No Good Deed, Alphaba. Which I gotta say has been really fun, like having Alphabas that we've done this for on and then having them tell us what they think they are and confirming if we're right or wrong.
It's like pretty split. I like that we're not like right every time.
And the name, Rachel Tucker. We haven't done this, right? Jason, I would love for you to start.
Rachel is a true triple threat, I must say. I would have to say Wizard and I only because she invented the melt. That is very important.
Yeah.
I also think her Wizard and I, especially on Broadway, just kept getting like better and better. So I'm going to say Wizard and I, but really all of them.
I agree because of the same reason for the melt.
I also agree with that. So Rachel Tucker, you're going to Hollywood. She's the mother of that choice. You know what I mean? Like whenever another woman does that choice, I'm like, oh, that's the Rachel Tucker choice.
And it's like a riff that makes sense. Kevin, you love a justified vocal choice.
I love it.
He also executes it so well because it happens like fast enough. You know what I mean? I feel like that's like one where if it happens slowly, it's not gonna land. Like
it's like clean. It is clean. Okay, awesome. Wow, total agreement.
Total agreement.
That's necessary.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever happened.
Okay, next name. Caroline Bowman.
Oh, Caroline. I love her.
We finally got to her.
Oh, she's going to be so excited. Okay, well, this is hard because now we know what she considers herself, which is kind so now I'm trying to like regress my opinion. I'll go first for this one. I recognize and understand like what she was saying about how the end of Defying Gravity, like that battle cry, is like something that's really important to her in her take on the role. So I like get that, and like for that I understand like she is a Defying Gravity Elphaba, but I do feel like the energy of Caroline Bowman, the person who we were lucky enough to like spend an hour talking to, is very The Wizard and I. Like I feel like she is that Elphaba in her life, but perhaps her performance is a Defying Gravity. You know what I mean? She's just got that like
exactly
warm openness that is not in the other two songs.
I agree. I think she is a Wizard and I Elphaba for the same reason, but I think she brings that energy to her performance as well. I think she is a very young Elphaba. Like her Elphaba feels very young, and I think that comes through in The Wizard and I the most.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to say Defying Gravity. I'm going to say she's a Defying Gravity Elphaba. Because I remember so specifically, like, when I watched her, she had such... I also care a lot about, like... I used to be a person who's, like, all about the last 90 seconds, but now, like, I do care about, like, the arc of the song.
I love that journey for you, Jason.
Right? Growth. But Caroline, I thought, showed the entire journey of that song so beautifully. Like, I remember after the whole Madame Warble Wicked Witch speech, like, Caroline looking so... There was just so much going on that was so visible, and that stuck with me. And how she took that into the beginning of the song and, like, the arc through the end. I thought, like, she acted that song beautifully. And her voice is, like, insane. But
yeah,
I will say, though, for Wizard and I think, like, the way she sings Things I've Never Felt, even though to score, is so booming and powerful, and I love that for her.
I love that she is a score Elphaba, and she's, like, a strong score Elphaba.
Yeah.
Strong score Elphaba, yes.
She finds ways to be creative, like, as a score Elphaba, which I think, like, not every score Elphaba does as much of. Like, she's
agree.
like a score plus Elphaba.
Like, it's very recognizably Caroline Bowman, and I think she's singing in a way that's very specific to her without changing the notes. I also thought that of Lindsay Mendez is another one that comes to mind. Like, mostly a score Elphaba, but, like, still very uniquely, like, her.
Yeah. I feel like we're kind of having a renaissance of the score Elphaba, like with the newer Broadway ladies.
I think they're kind of making them do it.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to
reel
it in before a movie gets made.
You might be right. It is weird, like, there are definitely phases. Like, that is the cool thing about being, like, a Wicked fan through the years, like, you can tell they're, like, 2012 to, like, 2015 were, like, the years of, like, riffs. There was, like, Christine Dwyer and Jennifer Denoya and Alyssa Fox, and, like, there was all these, like, huge choices, and then I feel like it kind of, like, reeled in the past 2 years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Jason, this has been so much fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What a cool bow tie on our from 13 years old bootlegging to now.
I know. It's like literally 9 years later.
Where can people find you online if they want to keep up with Jason Wilks?
Yeah, other than your Weebly site, where can they find you online?
I mean, if you really want to, I'm on Instagram at Jason A. Wilks. I am very active on the Sentimental Man Instagram.
That's funny. Jason, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was really fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Quincy.
Kevin.
I had an idea while we were just talking to Jason that there should be a movie exactly like Hustlers.
Okay.
But instead of Hustlers, I'm Julia Stiles, and I am interviewing all of the infamous bootleg kids from the early 2000s. And it's all about the bootleg kids getting chased by these full-grown adults who don't know how to catch them because they don't know how to use the internet. I think there's something there.
It is funny because, like, I literally was, like, going to school during the day thinking that, like, at any moment I could, like, a cop would bust in.
Like a SWAT team would bang down your math room door.
Like, it was, like, high level. I thought I could go to jail at any second.
You're running a little crime ring.
When in actuality, I feel like the police have bigger fish to fry than the 13-year-old kid trying to trade wicked bootlegs.
It is funny. I mean, I think that is probably something that is part of the reason so many theater kids and teenagers specifically are like drawn to bootleg culture, is because it is kind of like dangerous. You know, it's like you're like doing something.
It's our version of like being an angsty teenager.
Yeah, it's like you're doing something that you know is wrong, but it's like low enough impact that like you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody who's ever gotten like legal action taken or anything?
No, literally no.
Yeah, I feel like anytime there's ever an issue, anyone I know, it's literally just been like, hey, can you take this down? Yeah, sure. And then they just upload it somewhere else.
Especially we talked about like the masters who were actually selling it. I think if anyone's getting in trouble, it would be those people.
Right.
On your hustlers idea.
Yeah.
It is very interesting because there are a group of like, I would say Jason included, like 4 or 5 boys that like we were all the same age doing the bootlegging thing that I have stayed in touch with through the internet, just like we follow each other, and that's like the extent of our relationship. But it is like interesting that like we have this like kind of relationship because we were all just trading wicked bootlegs a decade plus ago, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a crazy culture. What's your take now that you have a deeper look?
Bootleg culture is interesting because even like hearing you guys talk about it, there was like a couple things that I'm like, I feel like maybe like there used to be people who would trade on like people on like LiveJournal and stuff would like be not like actively trading, but like using, like you were saying, like visit my website to trade or whatever. Like I would see that on LiveJournal all the time. And so it's like even funny that just by a couple of years, like it had already grown and changed between my heyday and yours.
Because I'm sure there's a generation of kids right now who might be listening to this and like this is not their bootlegging experience. Like I'm sure it's different.
I'm sure it's not. No, I'm sure it's on Snapchat now or something.
I think that just dated you, the fact that Snapchat was your touch point.
Quincy, I'm 100.
That you're like, what's hip? Snapchat. That was like really cute and funny that you did that.
It was definitely, I loved hearing you guys talk about it because there was such a level of like structure to this world that I knew from the outside, but not from the inside. Like I knew where to look for things, but I never traded with anybody. Mm-hmm. Like, and my experience bootlegging was always like, oh, okay, like it's January and Shoshana Bean is going into the role, so probably by the summer I'll be able to hear her doing it. Like I would think of it in that way. I never got into the like pay to watch or like trading games, so it was always like a couple month delay before things would like start trickling onto YouTube. So I guess like that was my big takeaway from talking to Jason, was like understanding the timeline from the other end.
Because I will say that was the nice thing about, like, granted, you had to pay for it, but, like, getting it directly from the masters, it was like, oh, so-and-so is going into the show, the master will, like, send out the announcement email the next week, because they always made sure that they were, like, at the culturally relevant moments, even, like, beyond Wicked for any Broadway thing. Like, if there was a buzzy replacement, or if, like, a new show was opening that was kind of buzzy, like, they always made sure they were at those performances. So it was kind of nice to have immediate access to, like, high-quality bootlegs of these cultural moments.
And it's funny, too, because now I'm, like, thinking about it. I'm like, we've been talking about this only in the context, really, of Wicked. But now I'm, like, thinking back, and I'm like, oh, no, like, I would stay up until, like, 3 a.m, going through every Broadway show, finding like I'd be like, okay, like I'll start with Wicked tonight, and I would like go and see, like watch 10 Wicked videos, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, like now let me watch like, I don't know, Rent videos, and I would watch like 10 different videos from that, and so it really is just like so vast, and like for every like you and Jason that was like trading partners, like doing Wicked, there was that for every show times however many.
Well, it's interesting, like hearing you talk about that. I wish we had thought of this when Jason was on, but like Wicked was definitely the gateway into my Broadway bootlegging, and then I started building out like the other Broadway shows. But every Broadway bootleg trading site, at least when I was trading and in my world, there was a tab that said Wicked DVDs, and then another tab that said other shows, and everyone had other shows, and it was just every other Broadway thing. And it makes me wonder if like Wicked kind of paved the way for this like intense bootleg culture of Broadway, Because it was always Wicked and then other shows, and it was everything else.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a couple factors to that, right? Like, it was like a blockbuster, so it was hot topic. It's in a really big theater, so it's probably easier to bootleg in that theater than it is in the booth, right? And then like once it was running long enough that it was like, oh, hey, like here's this really hard thing, and we have 5 people to compare doing it. And the fact that like Wicked opened like as the lightning was striking in internet and bootleg culture, it was like the perfect storm of like, this is opening at the right time in the right theater. It is the right level of difficulty, and there is the right level of demand for it, that it was kind of like the perfect show for the bootleg industry, if I may call it an industry, to like move forward with.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Oh, it was kind of nice going back to those days.
You're back to the sandbox.
Kevin, it feels like it's been so long since I've said this to you.
Well, since last year.
I think it's time for Kevin's Glinda Corner. Woo!
Okay, so this isn't really so much like a Glinda corner as it is just like a Glinda like paint swatch on the wall.
Honestly, love that.
So since we're talking so much about like YouTube and bootlegs today, and so then I started thinking like, okay, what is my favorite Glinda video on YouTube? And I was going through all my favorite bootlegs, and I was like, I know what it is. So back in the day, 14 years ago to be exact, on February 3rd, 2006, an account called Shoshana Bean Online uploaded a video called Backstage with Shoshana Bean Part 4A. And so this account has, I think, like 6 or 7 videos total, and they're all just like the blueprint for Fly Girl with Lindsay Mendez. And so it's just like Shoshana Bean backstage. But in part 4A, we are treated to a video of Shoshana Bean just like sitting in Megan Hilty's dressing room waiting for her to get out of the shower. And so then like Megan Hilty comes out of the shower, they do like a cute little like shtick. And then Megan shows the camera this video or this picture, and they're both in their curtain call costumes. Like Megan's in the blue dress and Shoshana's in the Act 2 dress. But they have switched wigs. And so it's this really jarring effect of like this like Elphaba with child pageant hair and then like a Glinda with Cher hair.
Wait, I want to see this picture.
It's like such a dumb moment, but I think about it all the time because I think as a kid I was like obsessed with this idea because Megan and Shoshana were so visibly close with each other. As like a young brand new fan of this brand new show, I think I was so like endeared by this notion that Shoshana and Megan were that close on stage and off. And so I remember being very invested in their friendship when I was in like 7th or 8th grade. So I just really like that.
No, I love that. I'm honestly surprised, like hearing you say that, it feels like textbook like PR to hype up the real life friendship between the 2 leads of Wicked. Like, I'm surprised that's not more of a thing in the Wicked culture.
Yeah, it feels like that now, but I don't know. I wonder if that was...
I don't think that was the intention for that, but I'm just saying, like, I'm surprised that hasn't been an employed, like, tactic now. You know?
Yeah.
That was great. Thank you. I want to see this picture.
Oh, I will send it to you.
Oh, the first Glinda Corner. I guess it's not, though, because you guys got Julia Murney last week, but we technically recorded that before the new year.
Yeah, and this wasn't really a Glinda Corner. This was
Kevin,
like a...
Don't sell yourself short, all right?
Quincy, thank you. I'm trying to do less of that in 2021, so...
Guys, new year, same us.
New year, same us.
Some really exciting, well... We have pseudo confirmations from some really exciting guests. So if everything works out, you guys are in for a pretty thrilling next couple of months.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that the excitement level of our episode last week with Julia Murney is a good omen, a good indication for all of the really cool stuff that we have coming up.
Really, really cool. Really, really fun. I hope Kevin and I are able to keep a lid on our fangirlness with these next guests.
So before anyone on Twitter tries cracking any codes, there is no information being given. I mean, I guess we could talk about that now. We like accidentally, well, it didn't accidentally. We put a boomerang on our Instagram
Kevin
story.
put a boomerang. I would have blurred a little.
But you know what's funny, Quincy, is I literally like went to take that and then saw that I could see her name on my screen. So I scrolled down, not even thinking like the rest of the words would be. But so we put this boomerang up right before we recorded with Julia Murney. And then when we finished, we looked at Twitter and somebody had like tagged us in a tweet that was like, confirmed Julia Murney is the next guest on Sentimental Men. Here's the proof. And they like zoomed in and like made out the like blurry ass like pixelated words on my Google Doc.
And it wasn't like, yeah, because it wasn't Julia Murney's name. It was like he saw like party of the Wild Party. He saw the word party.
Yeah, it said like party. I don't even remember. It was crazy.
It was like honestly impressive.
Impressive. Yes. That was me to a T in high school.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, this is the first time that we've had like a listener go this in on something. It was funny because like Kevin and I weren't like, oh, this is going to be a hush hush reveal, like secret thing. You know, we just like weren't necessarily announcing who the guest was yet. But the fact that this listener was like, I cracked the code, I thought was so funny.
Yeah.
Guys, just excited for what's to come. Hopefully this year is better for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly January will get better and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Talk to you guys next week.
Talk to you next week.
Farewell. Hasta la vista.
Happy 2021, everybody.
2021.
Can't wait for the Wicked revival.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, hopefully we see Wicked in this year.
I'm not even going to say hopefully. I'm going to say we're doing it.
Okay. Kevin is more optimistic than I am.
I'm putting it out there.
I think we will see Wicked this time next year.
Interesting. Much sadder than my idea.
All right. On that note, bye, guys.
Yeah, bye.
You've been listening to Sentimental Men.
This episode was produced, edited, and hosted by Quincy Brown and Kevin Bianchi.
Thanks to Julia DiMarzo for our thrillifying artwork.
And thanks to you for tuning in. You can reach us at sentimentalmenpod@gmail.com.
Or on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SentMenPod. That's SentMenPod.
Till next time, I'm Quincy.
And I'm Kevin.
Do you want to do Glinda Corner or no?
Yeah, I can do a Glinda Corner.
Okay.
It's short and stupid.
Yeah.
Like Glinda.
Disney's Aladdin on Broadway is among the longest-running shows in Broadway history. But did you know that it almost never came to be?
We walked out of Seattle thinking, okay, we don't have it. We have a lot of work to do.
But against tremendous odds, in March of 2024, they celebrated 10 years on Broadway.
Disney did a great job because they really took the notes.
Go behind the magic and listen to this never-before-heard story, the magical making of Disney's Aladdin on Broadway. Available everywhere you can get your podcasts.